The ballroom fell silent. More than 300 guests stood frozen as they watched one of the most powerful men in New York make the biggest decision of his life. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead. Champagne glasses stood untouched. A string quartet had stopped playing mid-song. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Because standing before billionaire Ethan Blackwell were two women. One was Sophia Hamilton. Beautiful. Elegant. The daughter of a millionaire real estate tycoon. The woman everyone expected Ethan to marry. Sophia Hamilton had been a frequent guest at Blackwell Manor for years. Her family and the Blackwells were close friends, and she visited so often that many of the staff treated her like part of the family. Some even assumed she would one day become Mrs. Blackwell. The perfect match, at least on paper. The other woman stood near the back of the room, trying desperately not to be noticed. Her name was Olivia Carter, and she was a maid. She wasn't wearing an expensive designer gown. She wasn't covered in diamonds. She wasn't part of New York's elite society. In fact, she wasn't even supposed to be attending the event. She had only been helping prepare the ballroom. Yet somehow, everyone's eyes were now on her, including Ethan's. "I've made my decision," Ethan announced. The room grew even quieter. Sophia smiled confidently. She already believed she knew the answer. Why wouldn't she? Her family and Ethan's family had spent months discussing a possible marriage. The newspapers had practically announced it already. Business leaders expected it. Investors wanted it. Socialites celebrated it. Everything pointed toward Sophia. Everything except Ethan's heart. He looked across the room, past the wealthy guests, past the executives, past the cameras, and directly at Olivia, the maid, the woman nobody noticed, the woman nobody respected, the woman nobody believed belonged there. Then Ethan spoke four words that changed everything. "I choose Olivia Carter." Gasps exploded throughout the ballroom. Someone dropped a glass. A reporter nearly fell out of his chair. Sophia's smile disappeared instantly. "What?" Ethan never looked away from Olivia. "I choose Olivia." The room erupted into chaos. Questions, whispers, shock, disbelief. Olivia herself looked horrified. She shook her head immediately. "No." Her voice barely came out. "No, there must be some mistake." But Ethan smiled. Because there wasn't. And the truth was, he had known exactly who she was from the very beginning. Before we go any further, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let us know where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And while you are at it, please hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. 6 months earlier, on a cold January morning, Ethan Blackwell arrived at Blackwell Manor after returning from a 3-week business trip to Europe. The mansion was enormous, nearly 20,000 square feet. Staff members moved throughout the home preparing for his arrival. Most avoided eye contact. They always did. Ethan had a reputation, not for being cruel, but for being distant, reserved, focused entirely on work. Relationships rarely lasted. Trust came even less often. After years of being surrounded by people who wanted his money, his influence, or his connections, Ethan had become skeptical of almost everyone. That morning, he entered the kitchen looking for coffee and accidentally bumped into someone carrying a tray of breakfast dishes. The collision sent plates crashing to the floor. Olivia froze. Her face turned pale. "Oh my God." She looked at the shattered dishes. Then at Ethan. "I'm so sorry." Ethan glanced down. The mess wasn't even her fault. He had walked directly into her. But Olivia immediately knelt down, trying to clean everything before anyone saw. "I'm really sorry," she repeated. "I'll replace them." Ethan frowned. "Why would you replace them?" She looked confused. "Because I broke them." "No." He pointed toward himself. "I did." Olivia blinked. Apparently, she wasn't used to hearing wealthy people admit fault. For the first time, Ethan noticed something unusual. She hadn't recognized him. Or if she had, she didn't care. She wasn't flirting, wasn't nervous, wasn't trying to impress him. She simply wanted to clean the floor and continue her day. And strangely, that made him curious. Over the next several weeks, Ethan found himself noticing Olivia everywhere. Not intentionally. At least that's what he told himself. But somehow, every time he walked through the mansion, she seemed to be there. Organizing books in the library, helping prepare dinner, watering flowers in the greenhouse. Always working, always focused. And unlike everyone else around him, she never seemed interested in impressing him. One afternoon, Ethan entered the library to take an important call. As he walked inside, he noticed Olivia kneeling beside one of the lower shelves. She wasn't cleaning. She was reading, completely absorbed. Ethan paused. The book in her hands wasn't a romance novel. It wasn't celebrity gossip. It was a thick business biography, the kind of book most people avoided. Olivia quickly stood when she noticed him. "I'm sorry." She immediately closed the book. "I wasn't neglecting my duties." Ethan glanced at the cover. "You like reading business books?" She looked embarrassed. A little. A little." She smiled nervously. "Maybe more than a little." For the first time, Ethan laughed. A genuine laugh. Not the polite kind he used during corporate dinners. The real kind. And for some reason, that made Olivia smile too. "Why business books?" he asked. Olivia hesitated, then answered honestly. "Because one day I'd like to own a business." Ethan blinked. That wasn't the answer he expected. What kind of business? Her eyes brightened immediately, and Ethan noticed something. Whenever Olivia talked about work, she seemed quiet. But when she talked about dreams, she came alive. "I want to open a community cafe." She smiled. "A place where people can work, study, read, and feel welcome." For nearly 10 minutes, she talked passionately about her plans, her ideas, her goals, her vision. Ethan listened carefully, not because he was being polite, because he was genuinely interested. When she finally stopped talking, she looked embarrassed. "Sorry, I talk too much." "No." Ethan smiled. "You don't." For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. Then Olivia quickly remembered who she was. And who he was. The billionaire owner. The employer. The impossible distance between them. She excused herself and hurried away. But Ethan stood there for several seconds after she left, thinking. Because for the first time in years, someone had spoken to him about dreams instead of money. Unfortunately, someone else had noticed. Sophia Hamilton, the millionaire's daughter. And she wasn't happy. Not at all. The following Saturday, the Blackwell and Hamilton families gathered for a charity gala. It was the type of event Sophia loved. Cameras, attention, luxury, everything she considered important. Throughout the evening, she stayed close to Ethan, laughing a little too loudly, touching his arm a little too often, trying desperately to remind everyone that she was the woman expected to become Mrs. Blackwell. But Ethan seemed distracted. His eyes kept wandering, searching, until he spotted Olivia helping serve guests near the ballroom entrance. Sophia noticed immediately, and jealousy began quietly growing inside her. Later that evening, she confronted Ethan. "Why do you keep looking at her?" Ethan frowned. "Looking at who?" "The maid." His expression hardened slightly. Sophia laughed. "Oh, please. Don't tell me you haven't noticed her." Ethan remained silent, which was answer enough. Sophia's smile disappeared, for the first time all night, because deep down, she suddenly realized something terrifying. Ethan wasn't interested in her. He was interested in Olivia, and she was determined to stop that from happening, no matter what it took. The very next week, Sophia began making subtle changes. Nothing obvious. Nothing anyone could easily prove. Just enough to make Olivia's life difficult. Instructions would mysteriously disappear. Schedules would suddenly change. Tasks would be assigned to Olivia at the last minute. Whenever mistakes occurred, somehow the blame always found its way to her. At first, Olivia assumed it was bad luck. Then she realized the pattern. One evening, after being unfairly criticized for a missing inventory report she had never even received, Olivia sat alone in the staff dining room. Exhausted, frustrated, close to tears. She didn't notice Ethan enter. "What happened?" His voice startled her. Olivia quickly wiped her eyes. "Nothing." Ethan sat across from her. "It's obviously not nothing." She forced a smile. "Just a long day." But Ethan wasn't convinced. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Olivia surprised herself. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the kindness in his voice. Maybe it was because she hadn't had anyone to talk to in a very long time. Whatever the reason, the words came out. "I feel invisible sometimes." Ethan's expression softened. Olivia looked down at her hands. "No matter how hard I work, no matter how much effort I put in, it feels like people already decided who I am before I even open my mouth." The words hit Ethan harder than she realized, because he understood exactly what she meant. People only saw his money. People only saw her uniform. Neither were being seen for who they truly were. "What would you do?" Ethan asked quietly, "if money wasn't an issue?" Olivia smiled faintly. "The cafe, the one you told me about?" She nodded. "Every day." Ethan couldn't help smiling. "You really believe in it?" Olivia laughed softly. "Someone has to." For several seconds, they simply looked at each other. A connection neither fully understood, and neither quite knew what to do with. Unfortunately, someone else saw it too. Standing just outside the dining room was Sophia, and she was furious. The next morning, Sophia paid a visit to the estate manager, a man named Richard Collins. Unlike most of the staff, Richard was easily influenced, especially by wealthy people. Sophia smiled sweetly. "I think Olivia has been overstepping professional boundaries." Richard frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean she's getting a little too comfortable around Ethan." The seed had been planted, and Sophia knew exactly what would happen next. Over the following days, Richard began watching Olivia closely. Every interaction, every conversation, every mistake, looking for a reason, any reason. Then eventually, he found one. Or at least, he thought he did. One Friday afternoon, a diamond bracelet belonging to Sophia went missing. Panic spread throughout the mansion. Staff members were questioned. Rooms were searched. Everyone was nervous. Everyone except Sophia, because she already knew where the bracelet was, hidden inside Olivia's cleaning cart. The search didn't take long. When Richard found it, his face darkened immediately. Olivia stared at the bracelet in shock. What? No. I've never seen that before. Richard folded his arms. It was found in your cart. Olivia felt her stomach drop. But I didn't put it there. Sophia stepped forward dramatically, her voice filled with fake disappointment. Olivia, I trusted you. Olivia looked at her, then at the bracelet, then back at Sophia. And suddenly, everything made sense. The schedules, the accusations, the constant problems. Sophia, she couldn't prove it, but she knew. The bracelet hadn't ended up there by accident. Richard's expression hardened. I'm afraid we're going to have to terminate your employment. The words hit like a truck. Olivia's face went pale. No. Her voice trembled. Please. You have to believe me. But nobody seemed willing to listen. Nobody except one person. A voice suddenly echoed across the room. I do. Everyone turned. Ethan stood in the doorway, and judging by the look on his face, someone was about to be exposed. The room fell silent. Sophia's confidence wavered for the first time all day. Ethan stepped into the room slowly. His expression was unreadable. What seems to be the problem, he asked. Richard cleared his throat. We found Miss Hamilton's bracelet inside Olivia's cleaning cart. Ethan looked toward Olivia. Her eyes were red, not from guilt, from heartbreak, and somehow he knew it. Immediately, Olivia wasn't a thief. Not even close. Ethan turned back toward Richard. Really? Richard nodded. We searched the cart ourselves. Ethan folded his arms. Interesting. Something in his tone made Sophia nervous. Very nervous. Ethan looked around the room, then calmly said, Bring up the security footage. The room froze. Sophia's stomach dropped. What security footage? Richard asked. The hallway footage. Ethan's eyes never left Sophia. A few months ago, some valuables went missing. So I had cameras installed. The color drained from Sophia's face. Nobody noticed except Ethan. But he noticed everything. Especially now. A staff member quickly pulled up the footage. Within minutes, a monitor was placed in the room. Everyone watched. Richard, the staff, Olivia, Sophia. The recording began. The hallway appeared. Then Olivia's cleaning cart. The room remained silent. A few seconds later, a woman entered the frame. Sophia. Olivia felt her heartbeat stop. The video clearly showed Sophia looking around, checking that nobody was watching, then opening Olivia's cleaning cart and placing something inside. The bracelet. The room erupted. Gasps echoed everywhere. One employee covered her mouth. Another simply stared. Richard looked horrified. Sophia's face turned ghost white. No. She shook her head frantically. No, there has to be some mistake. But everyone had seen it. There was no mistake. For the first time in her life, Sophia couldn't buy her way out. Couldn't charm her way out. Couldn't lie her way out. The truth was right there on the screen. Ethan's voice cut through the silence. You framed her. Sophia looked desperate. Ethan, please. It isn't what it looks like. The statement was so ridiculous that even Richard looked embarrassed. Olivia simply stood there, speechless. For weeks, she had questioned herself. Wondered if she was imagining things. Wondered if she was somehow causing the problems. Now she knew. She hadn't been crazy. She had been targeted. Ethan turned toward Richard. You're firing the wrong person. Richard lowered his head. He couldn't even argue. Not after what everyone had just witnessed. Then Ethan looked at Olivia. His voice softened immediately. You're not going anywhere. For a brief second, Olivia nearly cried. Not because she had been cleared, but because somebody believed her. Finally, somebody believed her. Meanwhile, Sophia realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about the bracelet anymore. The entire room had seen Ethan defend Olivia. The way he looked at her. The way he spoke to her. The concern in his voice. And suddenly, Sophia understood the truth. She wasn't losing because Olivia was prettier, or richer, or more powerful. She was losing because Ethan respected Olivia. And respect couldn't be bought. The next few weeks became the most uncomfortable of Sophia's life. For the first time, people treated her differently. Staff members became distant. Guests whispered. Even her own parents seemed embarrassed. But what truly bothered her wasn't the scandal. It was Ethan. Because despite everything she had done, he still spent time with Olivia. More time than ever. One evening, Ethan found Olivia sitting alone in the greenhouse. The sun was setting. Golden light poured through the glass walls. For several minutes, neither spoke. The silence felt strangely comfortable. Eventually, Ethan sat beside her. You okay? Olivia smiled. I think so. You think so? She laughed softly. It's been a weird month. Ethan couldn't argue with that. For a while, they simply watched the flowers. Then Olivia asked something unexpected. Can I ask you a question? Sure. She hesitated. Why are you being so nice to me? The question caught him off guard. Olivia looked down. I mean, you don't have to. You could have ignored everything. You could have stayed out of it. Ethan looked at her for several seconds, trying to find the right answer. Finally, he spoke. Because you're one of the few people who never wanted anything from me. Olivia blinked. What do you mean? He laughed quietly. You have no idea how rare that is. For the first time, Ethan told someone the truth. Not the billionaire truth. Not the magazine cover truth. The real truth. How lonely wealth could be. How exhausting it was wondering whether people liked him, or simply liked what he could give them. Olivia listened carefully, not interrupting, not judging, just listening. And that was exactly what Ethan needed. When he finally finished speaking, she smiled. You know something? What? You're a lot less intimidating than people think. Ethan laughed. A real laugh. The kind that came easier around her. Then something happened. Nothing dramatic. Nothing cinematic. Just a moment. A simple moment. Their eyes met. And neither looked away. Not immediately. Not this time. Because both of them suddenly realized something. What started as curiosity had become something much deeper. Something far more dangerous. They were falling in love. And neither one of them was prepared for what that would cost. At first, they tried to ignore it. Olivia threw herself into work. Ethan buried himself in business meetings. Neither wanted to acknowledge the obvious. But some truths refused to stay hidden, especially when everyone around you can see them. One morning, Ethan's mother requested a private breakfast meeting. That alone made Ethan suspicious. His mother rarely requested anything. She simply expected it. Margaret Blackwell was elegant, powerful, and fiercely protective of the family's reputation. The moment Ethan sat down, he knew where the conversation was heading. You're spending a lot of time with the maid. Straight to the point. Typical Margaret. Ethan took a sip of coffee. Her name is Olivia. Margaret sighed. That isn't the issue. It seems to be. Her expression hardened. Ethan, you are one of the most eligible men in America. You have responsibilities. Ethan laughed. I didn't realize love came with a board of directors. Margaret didn't smile. This isn't a joke. No. Ethan nodded. It isn't. The tension between them grew immediately. Margaret leaned forward. The Hamilton family has been close to us for decades. A marriage would strengthen both families. There it is. Margaret frowned. There what is? The business merger disguised as romance. For the first time, she looked irritated. Ethan, you're being childish. No. He stood. I'm being honest. Then he left. Because for the first time in his life, he wasn't willing to let someone else choose for him. Unfortunately, Sophia's family wasn't ready to give up either. Not even close. A week later, Olivia arrived at work to discover something shocking. Every major gossip website in New York was publishing the same story. Photos of her. Photos of Ethan. Photos taken secretly. Headlines screamed across the internet. Billionaire romance with Maid shocks social circle. Who is Olivia Carter? Is she after his fortune? Comments flooded social media. Thousands of them. Some supportive. Many cruel. Very cruel. Olivia sat in her apartment staring at her phone. Her hands trembling. People who had never met her suddenly had opinions. Judgments. Accusations. She felt sick. Then her phone rang. Ethan. She answered immediately. Hey. His voice sounded concerned. Don't read the comments. Too late. Olivia laughed bitterly. I already did. A pause. Then Ethan spoke softly. I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing? Because I know this happened because of me. Olivia looked out the window. The city lights blurred through tears. No. She whispered. It happened because people think they know me. For several seconds neither spoke. Then Ethan made a decision. Come with me. Olivia frowned. What? Just trust me. 30 minutes later, Ethan picked her up. No reporters. No bodyguards. No cameras. Just Ethan. They drove nearly 2 hours outside the city. Eventually, they reached a small lakeside town. Olivia looked around in confusion. What is this place? Ethan smiled. My favorite place in the world. The town was simple, peaceful, quiet. Nobody recognized him. Nobody cared about his money. For one entire day, they walked along the lake, ate at a small diner, fed ducks near the water, talked for hours. And for the first time in weeks, Olivia felt normal again. Not a maid, not a headline, not a scandal, just Olivia. As the sun began setting, they sat on a wooden dock overlooking the lake. The water reflected shades of orange and gold. Beautiful, peaceful, perfect. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, and suddenly understood something. Every major business decision in his life had been easy. This wasn't. Because this mattered. More than any company. More than any deal. More than any fortune. Olivia. She turned toward him. His heartbeat quickened. A feeling completely unfamiliar to him. For one of the first times in his life, the billionaire was nervous. I think I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air. Olivia stopped breathing. For a second. Maybe two. Then reality crashed back into her. His family. The media. The world. Everything standing between them. Tears filled her eyes. Not because she wasn't happy, because she was. And that terrified her. Ethan. Her voice shook. You deserve someone better. The moment she said it, Ethan's heart broke a little, because he knew exactly what she meant. Not better. Richer. More connected. More acceptable. Someone society would approve of. Ethan gently took her hand and said something she would remember for the rest of her life. I don't want someone better. His voice was barely above a whisper. I want you. And for the first time, Olivia allowed herself to believe it might actually be possible. But hundreds of miles away, Sophia Hamilton was preparing one final plan. One final move. A move so devastating. It would force Ethan to choose between his family, his fortune, and the woman he loved. 3 weeks later, invitations began arriving across New York. A grand announcement gala, hosted by the Blackwell and Hamilton families. The event immediately became the talk of high society. Everyone assumed the same thing. An engagement announcement. Sophia certainly did. Her father certainly did. The media definitely did. Only 2 people seemed confused. Ethan and Olivia. The moment Ethan received his invitation, he called his mother. What's going on? Margaret's voice remained calm. Come to the gala. Mother, come to the gala. Then she hung up. Not exactly reassuring. Meanwhile, Olivia had received an invitation of her own. She almost laughed when she opened it. Surely it had been sent by mistake. Why would someone like her be invited? Yet her name was printed clearly on the card. Olivia Carter, guest of honor. The words made no sense. And that frightened her. The night of the gala finally arrived. The ballroom looked even more extravagant than before. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, hundreds of guests. Reporters lined the entrance. Business leaders filled the room. Everyone waited. Everyone watched. Everyone expected history to be made. Sophia arrived wearing a stunning silver gown, the kind designed to attract attention. And it worked. Cameras followed her everywhere. Her smile radiated confidence. Victory. She truly believed tonight belonged to her. Across the room, Olivia entered quietly, wearing a simple navy blue dress. Elegant, beautiful, but understated. Several guests immediately whispered, why was she here? Why would Ethan invite her? The questions spread throughout the room. Then Ethan arrived, and suddenly all conversation stopped. He looked around the ballroom, at the guests, at the cameras, at Sophia, then finally, at Olivia. His heart made its choice all over again. The evening began with speeches. Investors spoke. Executives spoke. Family friends spoke. Then Margaret Blackwell stepped onto the stage. The room erupted in applause. Margaret smiled politely, then raised her hand. Silence followed immediately. Thank you all for coming. Her voice carried through the ballroom. As many of you know, tonight marks an important moment for our family. The crowd leaned forward. This was it. The announcement. Sophia's smile widened. Margaret continued. For months, people have speculated about Ethan's future. Reporters prepared their cameras. Sophia's father looked delighted. Margaret glanced toward her son. Then she surprised everyone. Tonight. She paused. The decision belongs entirely to Ethan. A wave of confusion swept through the room. That wasn't part of anyone's expectations. Not even Ethan's. Margaret stepped aside and handed him the microphone. The ballroom became silent. Ethan stood alone. Hundreds of eyes fixed upon him. His mother, the board, the press, Sophia, Olivia, everyone. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Ethan took a deep breath. I've spent most of my life doing what was expected of me. The room listened carefully. I attended the right schools, the right events, met the right people. A few guests exchanged looks. This world has a way of telling you exactly who you should be. He glanced briefly at Sophia, then toward Olivia. And for a long time, I listened. The ballroom remained silent. Then Ethan smiled. A small smile. The kind people wear when they're finally telling the truth. But something happened. He looked directly at Olivia. I met someone. Olivia's heart nearly stopped. Around her, whispers began spreading. Ethan continued. Someone who never cared about my wealth. Someone who never cared about my last name. Someone who treated me like a human being instead of an opportunity. The room was completely silent now. No whispers. No movement. Nothing. Then Ethan stepped down from the stage. Gasps spread throughout the ballroom. He wasn't following the script. Whatever script existed. He walked directly through the crowd. Past executives. Past reporters. Past Sophia. Past everyone. Until he stopped in front of Olivia. Tears instantly filled her eyes. Because she finally understood. The moment from 6 months ago. The ballroom. The choice. This was it. The moment. The reason she had been invited. The reason everyone was here. Ethan held out his hand and spoke the words that would be remembered for years. I choose Olivia Carter. The room exploded. Gasps. Shouts. Whispers. Cameras flashing everywhere. Sophia looked stunned. Completely stunned. As if reality itself had betrayed her. But Ethan wasn't finished. Not even close. He turned back toward the crowd. his voice stronger than before. If choosing Olivia costs me every dollar I own. He looked at her. It will still be the easiest decision I've ever made. Olivia began crying openly now, and suddenly something unexpected happened. Margaret Blackwell stood. The room watched, waiting, wondering. Had Ethan just destroyed his future? Had he chosen love over everything? Margaret slowly approached Olivia. The tension became unbearable. Then Margaret smiled. A real smile. Not a social smile. Not a business smile. A genuine one. She took Olivia's hands and said softly, "I owe you an apology." The room froze. Olivia blinked. Margaret continued, "I judged you before I knew you." Her voice shook slightly. "I thought my son needed someone impressive." She smiled through tears. Then I realized he already found her. At that moment, the entire room changed. Not because Olivia became rich. Not because Ethan was a billionaire. But because people finally saw her. The real her. And that changed everything. 1 year later, the grand opening sign read, Carter's Corner Cafe. A dream that once existed only in Olivia's imagination. Now real. Warm lights filled the space. Books lined the shelves. Students studied near the windows. Families laughed over coffee. The place felt exactly how Olivia had imagined it years earlier. Home. As she stood behind the counter greeting customers, a familiar voice spoke behind her. Busy day. She turned. Ethan, still smiling at her the same way. Still looking at her like she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Very. He laughed, then wrapped an arm around her. Outside, a little girl pointed through the cafe window and asked her mom, "Mommy, is that the billionaire?" Her mother smiled. "Yes." The girl frowned. "Why did he marry her?" The mother looked toward Olivia, then answered softly, "Because he saw who she really was." And sometimes, the greatest love stories begin when someone looks past your title and sees your heart. I want to hear from you. Type down to the comments and tell me, as you followed this story, where did your sympathy sit? Was there a moment when it shifted? Was there a moment when you understood Sophia, even as you judged her? Because I think if we are honest, she was just scared to lose someone she believed was hers and wanted to do all she could to keep it that way. The difference between her story and ours is often just the choices that were made when the feeling arrived. Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and conversations like this are why we are here. And if this story reached something in you, if it made you think about someone in your life or something in yourself, please share it and subscribe. Someone in your circle needs to hear it. We will see you in the next one.